Hello, and welcome to the Part 2 Rant Rave review of Harry Potter. We will be reviewing The Chonky Chonk Boy, Book 5, and The Less Chonky Boy, Book 6. So, this was my first true, Harry Potter experience. I actually got to go to the midnight release. I got to stay up all night reading it. I vividly remember, I don't know, I hadn't finished it, but looking out, and it was that blue color just before dawn, and I was like, it's the same blue as the book, because that book was blue. It was so, good and fun and great, and, the whole thing. I didn't know anything, because before I read the first 4 books, I knew some plot points, some people had told me things, but this was fresh and new, and it was amazing. Such a good book. I think these two are probably my favorites. They're so good and packed full of amazingness. I will say another thing, if you've read them as a kid only, go back and reread them as an adult, because it's really different. I love them, I still love them, and I still hate them, but yeah, they're so good, and they really hold up over time, and I reread, so I had finished, I think, whenever book 7 came out, that was when I finished the series, and then I stopped reading for a while, those books at least, and then a couple years ago in the fall, I was like, it's time. So I reread the whole thing, except for book 7, and they're so good. They're so great. And I will say, in this one, when I read it as a teenager, I was like, wow, Harry is so whiny and obnoxious, and I can't stand his emotional nonsense. Ew. And then I reread it as an adult, and I was like, yeah, you tell them, Harry. They should tell you things. They have no right to keep you in the dark. Yeah. And so it was really weird. I was way more on his side as an adult than as a teen, which, I don't know. So, Order of the Phoenix. So, okay. So many thoughts on book 5. It's very chonky, so it's full of thoughts. This is the one where, Dudley gets demented, and we learn, I think we know about squibs already, because we know that Filch is a squib, but this is when we, I believe, learn that Arabella, whoever is a squib. Arabella Fig, I've forgotten more about Harry Potter than you'll ever know. So anyway, I have thoughts about squibs. And this is something that I find problematic. And I've never heard anyone else talk about this, so I'm going to say it now. J.K. Rowling talks a good talk about, don't be mean to muggles, and don't be acting like magic is more important than, being a good person. And it doesn't matter if you're a muggle or a muggle-born or a squib. And I'm like, cool. Why are there no main character squibs or muggles? Avatar: The Last Airbender is great because you have these 3 amazing benders, plus then Zuko is also an amazing bender at the end, and Sokka. And Sokka is just as important as all the rest of them, even though he doesn't have bending. It's so great and balanced. Of course, that whole series is balanced. But in this, it's oh, squibs and muggles are great. Just kidding. They're not important. They don't get to be in the story. The only muggles we're shown are dirtbags. And I'm like, oh, okay. What I was hoping, honestly, I thought it would be really, well, not during the book, but after the fact, I thought it would be really cool if, when you have a new potions master, because Snape is the Dada teacher, if, you had this, potions master who's really good at potions, but then there's, a fight in between students in the school, and rather than breaking it up with magic, he, runs off and gets another teacher, and you're like, why are you running away? And he's like, oh, I can't do magic, I'm just a squib, but I'm really good at potions, because you don't need to be magical to mix potions. I thought that'd be really cool. Or any kind of character like that, where, anyone in Hogsmeade could, be a bartender or whatever. I think it's so funny where you could make a point that the magical world is so oversaturated with magic that they use it for things they don't need to do, and therefore it's hard for us. It would almost be like a disability where a squib could absolutely get by, except they've made their world in such a way that you're like, I guess I can't do all the things even though I can. It would be really interesting, but no, squibs don't get any screen time. Whatever, who cares about them, I guess. Brr. Yeah, I didn't like that, so problematic, J.K. Rowling. Problematic. Anyway, back to the story. I was a freak. So, remember how I said that J.K. Rowling's great because you can look back at her clues and figure things out. You can also just be a psychopath and figure things out. So in the part where the Dementors show up and Harry's trying to explain about them, and Aunt Petunia's like, Dementors? And everyone's like, oh, you know what those are? And she's like, that horrible boy used to talk about them. And of course you're supposed to think it was James. But as soon as I read that, I was like, what if it was Snape? And Snape knew Lily as kids. Yeah. Because I'm a psychopath. And I was right. Psychos for life, man. Okay. I knew these things because I don't know. Like, there's literally no evidence of that, but weirdos, they're like, everything is related to Snape. So, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Everyone keeps Harry in the dark for literally no reason. And, Dumbledore! He makes me angrier and angrier in every book. Like, why not tell Harry, here's the deal. Like, I mean, he could literally tell maybe not all the kids in friggin' Hogwarts, but like, at least Harry, whose life is deeply connected to this, and maybe Hermione and Ron, who he would probably tell anyway, like, hey, so there's this prophecy, I know what it is, maybe he could even tell him, there's no reason to not tell him about the prophecy, since it's gonna come true anyway, just tell him, be like, okay, here's what the prophecy says. We don't really know what it means, even though Dumbledore doesn't know what it means. I get why Dumbledore doesn't tell him everything, because he's gonna but you could at least say that. Or you could just be like, hey, Harry, there's this prophecy, it's in the Department of Mysteries, in the Ministry of Magic, under lock and key, safe, except that you would need to touch it to basically reveal it, and Voldemort's probably going to trick you into that. We don't want that to happen, so we just don't want you, like, do not go to the Department of Mysteries, okay? Like, boo boo, don't do it. That was easy. Why all the secrecy? Like, for the plot? Like, there's no reason for him to keep the prophecy a secret from Harry. It's so stupid. And again, I feel like it causes everything bad to happen in the book. I feel like I'll get to it. I'll get to the fact that Dumbledore's arrogance is what led to Sirius's death, but let's get to the rest of the book. Okay, Order of the Phoenix, blah, blah. Grimmauld Place is so cool. I love it. I love creepy old houses. It's so neat. They go to the Ministry of the Magic, blah, blah, blah. Mrs. Weasley is perfect and sad. Luna Lovegood is perfect. She's probably my second favorite character in the whole series. She's great. She's weird. I was a Harry and Luna shipper because Harry is, like, genuine and kind when he's around Luna. And they're both kind of, like, separated from people for different reasons. And they both have dead parents, so ding. But yeah, I like Luna, and I thought that she was cool and interesting. And I like that she, like, kind of immediately became a very important character in this book. So, yeah. Dolores Umbridge. On the one hand, I like the idea that you're trying to present, and I think Sirius says it in this book, of the world is not split up between good people and Death Eaters. Like, you can just be a bad person and not be a Death Eater, which is great until in book 7 when the Death Eaters take over and Umbridge is basically, like, promoted to their ranks. Like, she doesn't become a Death Eater, but she probably knows that that's what they are. Like, it would be way cooler if she was such a psychopath, so opposed to Voldemort, that, like, she was willing to become, like, a fascist the other way. That would be really rad. Like, if you had that kind of overreaction to try and keep people safe, and you're willing to use torture and cruelty to do it. As someone who is, like, completely against communism, like me, I hate communism. It's also completely unacceptable, the things that the United States did. And I'm not even talking about, like, McCarthy trials. I'm talking about, like, full-on human experimentation to try and have, like, a one-up against the communists. It's like, they're both evil. Like, don't do that. Stop. You can't justify horrible actions just because you're fighting against monsters. I read a lot of books about the 1950s for research. Anyway, this is already getting really long. Okay, so I feel like she undercut her message, basically, with Umbridge. Blah, 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 blah. I do like the whole, like, educational decrees in Dumbledore's army, though. That part's cool. School hijinks and magic. Grop. Again, she's overplaying her hand. She's like, racism is bad. And I'm like, cool. Why do you have to give us this character that makes us think that giants should be murdered? Not because they're, like, violent or dangerous, but because they're really friggin' annoying. Like, Grob is so unlikable. So unlikable. I'm like, get that out of here. We don't need it. Neville, we learn about his parents. Super sad and really cool and really interesting. Occlumency. At this point, again, like, Snape-tacular. Snape's awesome. I forget what the reason Dumbledore gives for why he personally cannot teach Harry. I don't remember. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like Dumbledore should just do it because Snape hates Harry. So again, if someone remembers the reason, drop it in the comments. But I think, again, this is a stupid thing on Dumbledore's part. Like, just teach the bloody... I think, is it because Voldemort, like, looks through his head and freaks out with Dumbledore? Maybe that's why. Okay, I'll give Dumbledore an out on this one, but it's still stupid. Occlumency. And Harry, again, is like, maybe Snape is trying to make me more susceptible to Voldemort because I hate Snape. And at this point, Dumbledore should friggin' tell the truth. He should be like, okay, I know Snape is gonna hate me for this, but, like, Snape was really good friends with your mom. You don't have to say he was in love with her. You just have to say, like, he would never admit this, but he was really good friends with your mom, and he feels really, like, guilty over her death because he was also a Death Eater. See? You don't even have to say that he was the one who told the prophecy. See? Hey. He felt guilty over her death, and, like, he's, like, vowed to, like, help you no matter what. There. That was easy. See how we don't have any misunderstandings about Snape possibly being evil, and Harry would probably be like, whoa, wait, he was friends with my mom? And maybe, like, you could have this, like, again, not actual friendship or understanding between them, but maybe Harry could be like, wait a minute, like, that's really weird. I never, like, like, I know he hates my dad, but, like, maybe, like, he was, like, I don't know. Oh, just tell the truth, Dumbledore. Why? You can just tell him, like, because the whole thing is like, oh, why does Snape trust Dumbledore? Or vice versa, why does Dumbledore trust Snape? And, like, even though people in the Order don't know. And I'm like, to the freaking adults who aren't Harry and won't be scarred by this fact, be like, hey, everybody else in the Order of the Phoenix, I'm just going to tell you, Snape, he was in love with Lily. He was the one who, like, told Voldemort about, like, the Potters, whoa, cool your jets, we're all adults here. It happened, like, 15 years ago at this point, so just chill. And then he immediately tried to, like, make it up. Well, don't mention the part that he only wanted to save Lily and not James. Shh. But anyway, he totally, like, switched sides. I trust him. This is why. He's particularly trying to save Harry in honor of Lily. So can y'all just cool it? And they'd be like, wow, I mean, that's really weird. But I guess so. Like, why, Dumbledore? Why don't you just tell them this? It would have saved so much trouble. And it would have saved lives, Dumbledore. We'll see why. Okay, so... I'm like I'm not even halfway through the book yet, am I? Okay, so blah blah blah. Snape's first memory. Okay. So if you watched my last video, which you really should, because it's part 1 of 2, we know that 2 of the Marauders are scumbags. Sirius for attempted child murder, even though he was also a child, so I guess just attempted murder. And Peter Pettigrew for, like, you know, literally betraying his friends, which we'll get to in a second. So, Snape's first memory. We see it in third person. It is not, like, from Snape's point of view. Like, this is what happened. And the evidence is pretty damning. So, like... First of all, we because Harry can kind of, like, wander around between different groups, which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting way to do a flashback. And, like, it doesn't seem like James or Sirius or Lupin liked Pettigrew at all. They're just like, whatever, and he's, like, kind of, like, Weasley little, like, hanger-on. So I'm like, even though, yeah, you probably shouldn't, like, you know, give up your friends to the neo-Nazis, maybe he didn't really have a reason not to betray them, because they clearly didn't actually like him. They just kind of put up with him. Like, there was no love lost there. Like, if Lupin had betrayed them, like, yeah, that would be like, holy cow, what? But Pettigrew, like, doesn't even seem like part of the group. It's just so... like, and even the way, like, when McGonagall is explaining, I forget who she's talking to, she even acts like, oh, he was just kind of, like, hanging out with them. So, like, everyone could see it. So, yeah, we see that, first of all. So we're like, okay. But he's still a scumbag. So it's still 2 out of 4. And then Snape is over here, like, being a dork under a tree, doing nothing. And James is like, I'm bored. Like, I would like to go torture that person. And you're like, what? Like, apropos of nothing, goes over and he's like, I'm gonna start being a jerk. Like, I'm gonna start, like, casting spells at you. And Snape's like, oh yeah, suck up Sempra. What now? Sucka. Which is, like, self-defense. I think you're allowed to self-defense against people who are casting curses and spells and stuff at you. And then James, like, hoists him by his, like, legs, and apparently Snape only wears underwear. I'm like, which begs the question, do all wizards not wear pants under their, like, robes? The world wants to know. We know that they don't, because that one dude said, and before, there's some random wizard in the what is it called? The soccer match. It's not soccer. It's Quidditch. The Quidditch cup. He's like, I like a nice, healthy breeze around my privates. Question answered. We didn't need to know J.K. Rowling, but now we do. Anyway, and then Lily's like, stop doing that. And does Lupin even go to get a teacher? Or does he just, like, not? I don't even remember. I feel like Lupin could have stopped this, but he didn't. But we'll get to him. He's not a total scumbag yet. And then Snape says a racial slur, and then Lily rightfully is like, you're stupid, but she could still, you know, like, make James stop hoisting the student. Oh, what? No, she just leaves, and then James forcefully strips a student in front of the crowd. Which, I guess, isn't an expelling offense. Like, in America, in our filthy, backwards, corrupt America, full of Ilvermorny and nonsense, we would call that sexual harassment, and we would probably, like, at least suspend you, if not expel you. But in jolly old Britain, in Dumbledore's Hogwarts, just like, oh, you, like, forcefully denuded a student in front of other people? Whatever. I mean, you know, you do you. Boys will be boys. And I'm like, James is a scumbag. Like, I'm not even sorry he's dead. At this point, I was like, oh. I mean, okay, as a Snape fangirl, full disclosure, I was like, Snape's probably right. James is probably bad. And then you read Snape's Worst Memories, and you're like, holy freaking cow on a pogo stick. Like, that's horrible. Like, that's horrible. And Harry rightfully is like, that's horrible. Like, I am shocked. And then he, like, boop, 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 he, like, talks to Sirius and Lupin through the fire. Yeah, through the fire. And they're like, oh yeah, haha, like, we were horrible. But, like, James changed. And Harry's like, so he, like, didn't, like, torture Snape anymore? And they're like, oh, I mean, not in front of Lily. Ha, ha. And I'm like, so he didn't change. So that's what we're hearing. He didn't actually change, is what we are, in fact, hearing. Correct? Yes? Okay. So he's still a complete and utter scumbag. And here's what bothers me, okay, about people. So let's get back to Snape calling Lily a racial slur. So let's think about, like, why he might have done that. It's not okay. But perhaps the only people in the world who care about him. We know he's, like, an abused little child. Well, in his book, once we see his memories and stuff. Well, no, we actually know this in book. We know he's abused. We know his father's yelling at his mother, okay? In this memories. So he's probably abused. Lily's probably his only friend. Except for all the people in Slytherin. And because the school is complete garbage, they're like, let's just funnel all of our, like, racists into one house. That's a healthy environment for growing minds. So anyone Snape is going to interact with, other than Lily, is going to be a little, like, dark mark, fascist, Death Eater wannabe. And so he's probably going to hear that ad nauseum constantly. And those people, and if you hear the other Death Eaters talk about him, they seem to be totally fine with him, if not actually, like, respectful of him. So it's like, who is he gonna follow when he's 15, has no one at home? Like, I know I'm like, this is about, like, American school shooters. No, but, like, when you have no friends, except for, like, one person and a bunch of other people who, like, when you're, like, constantly, like, brainwashed that, of course, if you're gonna yell something at somebody, the first thing you're gonna yell is, like, the insult you hear hurled out the most. And the insult he probably hurls out the most is mudblood. So yeah, it's really not okay, and she's correct to be angry at him, but it's not, like, unforgivable. It's like, no, it's like, it's stupid, and she should, like, slap him, and then be like, do better. And it's okay if she's, like, not friends with him anymore, but it's not okay to be like, I'm abandoning you to the wolves, like, James can do whatever the heck he wants, because that's fine. Because clearly, calling someone a mean name is way worse than hoisting somebody up by their legs so they can't fight against you, filling their mouth with soap, which is what James also did, and then taking their pants off. Clearly, the racial slur is worse. Is it, though? And then you have all the annoying fans being like, well, you, like, oh my gosh, it's so stupid. They're like, what, are you saying that she should have chosen Snape instead of James? And I'm like, no, I'm saying she should leave both of those jerks and, like, go live a good life. Like, James is horrible. Snape is horrible. Like, she should not have gone with either of them. They're not, like, boyfriend material, okay? I'm just like, no, leave them to their devices. Like, why is this a weird triangle that fans are like, oh, clearly, if there's a female character, she must choose one of them. And I'm like, no. Like, if like, the choice is, like, an old salad or a rotting fish, you don't have to eat either of them. Snape is the old salad, by the way. Like, you don't have to eat either of them. You just go. It's just so dumb. Oh, you vault. Okay, so that is my little rant about Snape's worst memory. So 3 out of the 4 Marauders are scumbags at this point. So, oh, and by the way, Dumbledore is just like, oh, you did that? I mean, I guess detention? Whatever. This is fine. Like, yeah, that's fine. You just do you. And then, can I write a really long essay about Snape and trauma? I won't, but I could, but I won't. Anyway, if this book had been written now, I wonder what people would say. It would be hilarious and horrible. So then we have the ending where, very long story short, Voldemort gives Harry a Snape vision of Sirius being tortured, and they need to check on that, and of course the little creature is like, haha, he's being tortured. Yay! Because why not? Because why should Creature be kind to Sirius? Sirius hates him. Yeah, that's great. He hates him probably because he's associated with his house, like a piece of furniture, because Sirius is not actually a good person. Doesn't actually respect house elves, but you do you. His brother did. His sainted brother did. I forget what his name is. The really good kid who, could have made Creature drink, poison in order to, try and hide a Horcrux, but actually drank it himself and sent Creature home because he's a sainted brother. Anyway, Sirius, you're not half the man that whatever the heck your brother's name is. I don't know. Names. They're not. Regulus. Anyway. And then Harry and co. break into Umbridge's office, and she catches them, and she brings Snape in, and they're like, and Harry's like, Padfoot, he's in the place where it's hidden! And Snape's like, I have no memory of this. Sayonara, Snape out. Obviously, he's gonna go, warn the good guys, which is exactly what he does. He's like, Sirius, are you, being tortured? And Sirius is like, I hate you, but no, I'm not, And he's like, I hate you too, scumbag, but ring-a-ding-ding, you better tell everybody that, Harry's mind is full of nonsense. This is what he does, but Harry's like, no, he, goaded Sirius, and it's his fault he's dead. But, again, at this point, it's not even Harry's fault, because no one will tell him anything, so of course he's gonna think that Snape is evil. Because Dumbledore doesn't make him think he's not evil. Feelings, rage. Yeah, and again, Dumbledore has the audacity to be like, oh, I didn't want to tell you this stuff, Harry, because I cared too much about you. And I'm like, well, maybe if you told him anything, he would have trusted Snape, he would have gone to Snape. Like, Dumbledore is the reason that Sirius is dead. Because if he just told him, like, Snape was friends with your mom, that's why I trust him. He's here to protect you because he liked your mom as friends, maybe even. Okay, then Snape, then like, they wouldn't hate each other as much. Not entirely. And Harry would be like, oh my gosh, Snape, I had this vision. Like, can I use, like, your fireplace or something I assume that you have? And Snape would be like, let me check. Like, okay, no, he's not being tortured. Like, oh, there, that was easy. No one had to die tonight, Dumbledore. No one had to die. But I guess you just cared too much about him. Okay, book 6. I told you it was going to be a rant. You didn't think I wouldn't rant, did you? This is my favorite one. Yay! I remember, like, again, months before it came out, we didn't know the title, and it was like, Half-Blood Prince, and I was like, Half-Blood Prince? That sounds so cool. Who is it? What's a half-blood? What's a prince? Blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what half-bloods are. I don't know what princes are, but anyway, it's so cool. And then the book came out, and I didn't get to go to the midnight release. I was at a retreat, and I was so angry that everyone else got to read it before me. And I made everyone swear to secrecy. I was like, you don't tell me a thing! You don't tell me a thing! And they didn't. So then I came and I got the book and I was like, it's green. It's green. And I was like, oh, it has like a pensive on the front because it looked like a pensive, right? We all thought that that thing was the pensive, even though it was the thing the locket was hidden in. And I was like, oh, what's the back look like? Oh, the back has a building, like a castle, probably where the Half-Blood Prince lives, and a dark mark. And I was dumb. I think most people knew that that castle was Hogwarts, but I was like, no, clearly the dark mark is like on some random castle where like some random prince lives because, yeah. So I'm going in blind, guys, and I go in, and it's really, I like how, like, this one is like a little somber and dark, but this one reminds me of, like, if I can be weird, it reminds me of like when it's rainy and wet and cloudy and it's right before sunset. Like, that's the kind of dark that this book is, and I love it. Love it. The feeling of it is so good. I'm a weird person. Anyway, Spinner's End. It's so cool. Oh my gosh, Snape and Peter Pettigrew are hanging out, like, in the suburbs. Can't they get along? It's a wacky sitcom. Anyway, they make me unbreakable. I've been ranting for too long. It's been like an hour of ranting, but my breaking point. They make the unbreakable vow. It's like a magic pinky promise. Oh, and I should mention again that I was not surprised by this. I was like, oh, make the unbreakable vow and you'll die if you break it, eh? I guess Snape's gonna die in this book. I'm prepared because I knew he was gonna die as soon as I, like, loved him in the first movie, because that's what happens to characters I love. I'm okay with this. I'm braced for it. Okay. So, oh, and I should mention that as soon as in the first movie it was revealed that Snape was not evil and Quirrell was behind it, I never thought Snape was evil, like, going forward. So I am just under the assumption through books 1 through 6, I'm like, Snape is a good person. Like, well, not a good person. Mean, but like a good double agent and like, you know, he's there to protect the students, and even if he hates Harry and does really horrible things to Neville, like, really horrible, like, okay, not a good person, but he's a good, like, he does his job well. Okay. So, I also thought that Draco was really interesting in this one, and I liked that finally J.K. Rowling was like, I'm gonna give a bad character some actual depth. Like, poor kid, he's under a lot of stress. And I also love how in every other book, you know, Harry has these wild and insane theories about what's happening with the mystery, and it's full of red herrings and nonsense. And in this one, they're like, that's nonsense, Harry. And he's absolutely correct. That, like, Draco was looking at that cabinet for some nefarious reason. He is doing all this stuff. And like, Harry was correct. Like, all of this stuff is true. Draco's totally got a scheme. Snape. Okay. So Snape finally gets to become the Dada teacher. Which, if you don't know what that means, it's a defense against the dark arts. Cool kids in the know call it Dada, for short. But he always seemed to have such an anger in him about not getting that job, especially when Lupin got it. And he's, like, so angry that he didn't get it that year. And it's like, Dumbledore, who knows that this job is probably cursed because Voldemort wanted it and didn't get it, and it's probably legit cursed. Why didn't you tell Snape that? And be like, Snape, I value you too much as an employee and a friend to give you this incredibly dangerous job. Like, I can't do it. I'm sorry. Like, I want you at my school. That was easy. Friggin' A. And then, of course, we realize after reading it that the only reason he gave him that job is because he expects him to kill him at the end of the year. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. And then, it's so rockin' because we finally learn about Voldemort's backstory. And it's so cool and so rad. And, like, I like it, A, because it has definite bad seed. If you've ever seen the old movie, The Bad Seed, it has total, like, overtones of that. It's super creepy. And in the first 5 books, it's just like, oh, like, Voldemort is basically Magic Hitler. That's interesting. But in this one, it's like, no, he's like a weird, like, serial killer fetishist guy who has to take trophies from people that he, like, harms. And those trophies are what then lead to that kind of, like, I need the special founder's items for my Horcruxes. And it's so cool. And the fact that Horcruxes are a thing are so cool. Look, what a concept. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I love her dark magic. It's so creepy. You, like, break your soul apart by killing people. It's so cool. But what about Snape stole Dumbledore? What about Snape stole Dumbledore? Oh, you didn't answer that? Yeah, figures you don't tell anybody anything. Anyway, what about his soul? Guess it doesn't matter. So, okay, except everything's great about Voldemort's, like, backstory. Except Merope got. So, it's briefly mentioned by Slughorn that, like, these are, like, potions we'll learn how to make, including Love Potion. And you're like, questionable? And then we learn that Merope Gaunt full-on, straight-up date-raped Tom Riddle Sr. and got pregnant. What? And this isn't presented as, like, what a freaking scumbag. It's like, we should pity her, Harry. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to pity a rapist. I'm sorry. That's what that is. Oh, don't believe me? We're going to play a fun game. It's a fun game I like to play called What If This Character Was a Woman? You can use it to tell how creepy something is or how incredibly, like, toxic something is. For example, like, what if a student, like, hoisted up a girl and forcefully stripped her in front of a crowd? Okay. In this, what if a wizard used a love potion on a muggle woman and got her pregnant? Whoa, that's suddenly extremely creepy and should probably be commented on by literally anybody in the book. Oh no, it's fine because it happened to a man? I mean, no, it's not. And then back in book 4, it's almost like shown, like, oh, Tom Riddle Sr. just, like, kicked them out and didn't care about them. And it's like, excuse you. Like, maybe it was mean to kick out the baby, but I don't even know if he knew that she was pregnant at that point. But I'm like, no, like, you're date raping him. Like, he has every right to kick you out, if not imprison you. I'm sorry. What? Like, how is this acceptable? It's not acceptable, okay? No. No. So then we have the ending. Oh my gosh. Oh, I also really love the Felix Felicis chapter. Harry's just like, whatever, man. I feel great. I feel lucky. I picture him talking like he's completely drunk. Like, I don't think that's what she intended, but that's how I picture it. It's great. He's just like, yeah, man. This will work out. And then the cave is so creepy with, like, I love it because it's like, like, water zombies are creepy. Like, corpses in water and the zombies are both creepy, and then you combine them, and I'm like, wow, J.K. Rowling, that's, like, straight out of something from Dark Souls, like, 10 out of 10. But also, you're like, how many people did he kill? And why are they, like, did he kill a whole village? Like, why is this full of... It's so creepy. I love it. I love that scene. And the slow build. I'm just like, oh, so good. So good. And then, okay, so at this point, again, I'm reading it for the first time, and they get back to Hogsmeade, and they're like, there's a dark mark above Hogwarts. And I was like, a dark mark above Hogwarts? And I, like, look at the back of the book. Oh, it's a dark mark above Hogwarts. Who knew? Like, not me, because I don't make these connections. So, yeah. So I was like, what And then, of course, they get to the tower, Draco disarms Dumbledore, and Harry's under the invisibility cloak, and then, like, and Harry and Dumbledore's talking to Draco, and Draco's, like, really sad, because he obviously, like, doesn't want to do it, but he has to, or he'll die. And I'm like, okay. And at this point, and then, like, the other Death Eaters show up, and I'm like, I don't know. And I'm thinking, like, I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but I'm like, is Snape gonna, like, take, like, Draco and, like, disapparate? Well, they can't disapparate, but, like, something like that, or, like, what's gonna happen? Like, how is he gonna save Draco? Like, I don't know. But he's gonna die. I'm assuming in my brain, again, not fully functioning, because it obviously wouldn't work with the way that the Draco's vow works, that he's gonna somehow save Draco and not fulfill the vow and therefore die. Because I'm expecting Snape to die. Because every character I love dies. So I'm like, Snape's gonna die by not doing the unbreakable vow. Like, when's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? Like, Snape's gonna die. And then as soon as Snape steps out onto the tower, I was like, like, he's not going to die. He's going to kill Dumbledore. What? And at this point, it's like, time, like, slows down. And I start sobbing. I should mention that I start sobbing uncontrollably. Like, on my bed, weeping, like, over my book, like, sobbing. For, like, 20 minutes. 20 minutes, my friends. As I'm like, is he evil? Was he evil this whole time? Was I wrong? But he can't be evil. Like, no, because of, like, all this evidence. Like, he can't be evil. And then I was like, okay, if we take that as a given, if he's not evil, then, like, what's going on here? And I was basically like, okay, think, like, it's like a stupid crime show. Anyway, I'm like, go back to the beginning. Boop, 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 boop. And it's like, the vow is to, like, do the thing if Draco can't, so he has to kill Dumbledore. And then Dumbledore said, like, what is it? Harry overhears some conversation in the woods where he's like, I'm not going to do it anymore, Dumbledore. And we also know that Dumbledore has, like, a withered hand from trying to kill Horcrux. And I was like, what if Dumbledore, in order to save Snape, because he knows Snape's good and is a double agent, asks Snape to kill him so that he'll have an in and be able to live and not kill Draco? Like, so therefore, Dumbledore asked him to do it. Yes. Dumbledore asked him to do it. And as I realized this, I was like, okay, I'm, like, sobbing. By the way, I haven't finished the chapter yet. Snape has just stepped onto the landing. And I'm, like, reading it, and I was like, okay, he has to do it. Snape's good. And then I turned the page, and he's like, Avada Kedavra, and I started sobbing for, like, 20 more minutes. It was the most I've cried ever when reading a book. I've cried more in video games and movies, but this was the most I've ever cried while reading a book. I just, like, sobbed. But it's okay, because Snape's good, and they run. Oh, I should also mention, it was really funny, partway through the book, when Harry's wondering who the Half-Blood Prince is, and it mentions that the prince's handwriting is small and cramped, I, like, ran to my sister, who I had made promise not to tell me anything, and I was like, Claire, is Snape the Half-Blood Prince? Because in book 5, he has, like, tiny scrunched handwriting, and this is small and cramped. Is it Snape? Is he the Half-Blood Prince? And she was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just, like, went back to my business. So then, at the end, when Harry runs through Hogwarts, and it's such a good scene, and I don't know why in the movies they're like, it would be boring to have 2 fights in Hogwarts. And I was like, this is not a fight in Hogwarts. This is like, you're all sleeping in your school, safe and sound in your jammies, and freaking, like, Nazis break in and start, like, blowing stuff up. This is not a battle. This is, like, a massacre, and it's amazing, and you should put it in your movie. Instead, in the movie, they, like, lightly saunter out. Anyway, but in the book, it's so intense. There's, like, spells going every which way and people on the floor, and it's insane. And then, like, he's like, face me, you coward. And he's like, don't call me coward. All caps. Like, I'm the Half-Blood Prince. And I was like, oh, wait, like, oh, my sister lied to me. Because I'm really good at, like, noticing stupid details, but, like, not very smart when it comes to extreme obvious things. So I'm very gullible, by the way, like, exceedingly gullible. So, and then it ends, and they have a funeral for a garbage human who doesn't deserve to have us care about him anymore. His name is Dumbledore, and I don't care, he's dead. Yeah. Because again, at this point, okay, like, maybe you wanted to have, like, Snape have a perfect, like, in with Voldemort, but he knew that he was going to have Snape kill him. And he didn't tell a single member of the Order of the Phoenix. Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. Like, you're putting the man's life in danger. Any of them could kill him at any time and have every right to do so because they think he's a murderer. Okay? Like, Dumbledore, even if you don't tell Harry, you gotta tell someone. And he's like, this is fine. No one's gonna, whatever, it doesn't matter. And, as we shall see, just as he was responsible for Sirius's death, he was absolutely responsible for Snape's death. We'll talk about Book 7 in another Rant Rave review next week, because this is getting obscenely long. But I hope that you've seen my love, my hatred for Harry. You've not even begun to see my hatred. Oh, children. Oh, children, no. No. I love it. But I also hate it. But we'll talk about that next time. See you then.